stand by. We're about to begin. Good day and welcome to the Healthy Relationship Education, What, Why, and How It Relates to Strengthening Family conference call. Today's conference is being recorded. At this time, I would like to turn the call over to Andrea Strahan. Please go ahead, ma'am.
Thank you, Rochelle, and hello, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the National Resource Center for Healthy Marriage and Families webinar entitled Healthy Relationship Education, What, Why, and How It Relates to Strengthening Families. My name is Andrea Strahan, and I'm part of the Resource Center team. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today. And before we get started with the presentations, I'm going to go over a few housekeeping items for today's webinar. The audio for today's webinar will be broadcast through your computer speakers. We will not have a call-in number, so please make sure the volume on your computer speakers is turned up so that you can hear the presentations. New featured resources that will be discussed in today's webinar are available for you to download from the pod in the top right corner of your screen, designated with the word Files. Please click the name of the file you wish to view and then the download button to open or save a copy of the resource to your computer. These resources and the videos shown today will also be available on our website at healthymarriageandfamilies.org. We will be taking questions at the end of the presentation, and we encourage you to submit any questions that you have throughout the duration of the webinar. To do this, find the question and answer pod designated by the letters Q and A in the bottom right portion of your screen. Type your question into the open field at the bottom of the pod and then click the Send Question button or press Enter. You will receive an automatic reply thanking you for your question, and your question will be forwarded to the moderator. A recording of this presentation, the slides, a transcript, and a question and answer document will be posted to our website, healthymarriageandfamilies.org, within about 10 business days. Our speakers today will be Robin Senezal, Project Director for the National Resource Center for Healthy Marriage and Families, Deborah Gilmore, Family Safety Expert at the National Resource Center for Healthy Marriage and Families, Ted Futris, Training and Technical Assistance Expert for the National Resource Center for Healthy Marriage and Families, and James P. Marshall, Associate Professor of Family Life at the University of Arkansas. So with that, I will go ahead and turn the call over to Robin Senezal, Project Director here at the National Resource Center for Healthy Marriage and Families. Robin?
Thanks, Andrea, and welcome to all of you. We appreciate you taking time to join us today for this webinar. Today's webinar, we hope to answer the following questions. What are the skills that make up healthy marriage and relationship education? How does healthy marriage and relationship education affect children, families, and communities? Why is healthy marriage and relationship education important? What is your role as a service provider? And what are strategies for integration and how the Resource Center can help? We are excited to introduce to you the National Resource Center for Healthy Marriage and Families. For those of you who have not participated in any of our webinars or visited our website in the past, our mission is connecting healthy marriage education skills and safety net services as an integrated approach to strengthening families. So to help you have a little context for what we do, we want to tell you about the things that we offer at the Resource Center. Research that supports and promotes integration of healthy marriage education skills, resources, tips, and tools to use and share with the families you serve, and training and technical assistance to support stakeholders like you as you work to implement integration strategies. So you're going to hear throughout our call today, you're going to hear about integration strategies, you're going to hear what is healthy marriage education, you're going to learn about some of the resources that we have that you can easily download, such as the files that are here in our webinar today, and also other resources. So let me start by asking you a poll question. Which of the following attributes do you think are the most important attributes of a healthy relationship? Take a second and answer these. Communication, mutual respect, financial stability, shared values. Okay, we'll take just a few more seconds. Great. So it appears that 73.4% of you believe that it's communication. And we also have 18.7% believe mutual respect. We have 1 who believes in financial stability and 6.25% that believe it's shared values. Well, the truth is that all of these are correct. The question becomes interesting when you ask about which is most important because that varies from person to person. But when talking about what are the attributes of healthy relationships, all of these issues are important. Our personal experiences determine for us individually what are the ones that we think are the most important. And those could be experiences that you were around as a child, relationships that you grew up around, or it could be personal experiences that you've had as an adult that help you determine what are the most important attributes to you. When we think about what it takes, the underlying skills for most of these attributes are things like positive communication and conflict resolution skills. So when we think about all of these different attributes of healthy relationships, we also have to address what are some of the family stressors. So in thinking about family stressors, even families that have healthy relationships experience stress. Parenting, finances, all of these different issues that are going on in families can be very stressful. Parenting can be stressful, and even more so for single parents or for those in step-family or blended family situations. Finances, especially in today's economy, can be extremely stressful. As a matter of fact, financial issues are often cited as the primary reason for couples divorcing. The natural process would be for us to learn these positive communication skills, conflict resolution skills, and even these core skills related to parenting and financial management. The natural process would be for us to learn these in our family of origin. But if we don't learn them there for whatever reason, whether it be parents who didn't have those skills to share with us, or it just be a matter of dysfunction in families that disrupted that natural process, our society doesn't typically offer another place for us to learn these skills. So today's webinar is going to give you some information on how we can help to integrate these skills into safety net service delivery systems. Deborah is going to tell us a little bit more about what is healthy marriage and give us an overview of these skills. So with that, I'll turn it over to Deborah.
Thanks, Robin. To first really take a look at the logical components of healthy marriage and relationship education, the Resource Center starts with the foundation of knowing what is the what, or what is a healthy marriage defined as. And the Federal Office of Family Assistance Healthy Marriage Initiative defines healthy marriage by 2 principles or outcomes. It is mutually enriching and mutually respectful. At its core, across cultures, geography, across political views, these are 2 central and shared experiences in a healthy marriage. And the skills and knowledge that a couple needs to achieve those 2 shared experiences have already been touched upon by Robin. These form the basis for all healthy marriage programming. Healthy marriage and relationship education focuses on increasing knowledge and skills in 2 core areas, communication and conflict management. So it's great to see that 3/4 of you felt that communication was so critical to a healthy marriage. Communication includes the way that a couple communicates, such as consistently focusing on positives about one another and having 2-way or mutual exchanges of information when you are communicating. And it can also cover the key areas that couples should be communicating about, for example, core values, family backgrounds, and spending habits. Healthy marriage and relationship education also typically focuses on application of these skills and increasing knowledge in 2 critical areas, money management and rearing children, those common sources of tension in a committed relationship. Once you understand or see what healthy marriage and relationship education is, I think it's easier to understand why myths and concerns about it are untrue. It is not about coercing people to marry or remain in an unhealthy relationship. And this means that it does not attach a stigma to divorce, nor does it limit anyone's access to divorce. And that's not to say that there might be programs out there that seem to do just that, but when the Resource Center talks about research-based healthy marriage and relationship education, it is not talking about those programs. Healthy marriage and relationship education does not exist to hook up singles, nor does it exist to diminish the hard work of individual single parents. It is a research-based prevention tool. There are out-of-the-norm tragedies that serve as reminders that there is no single panacea for complex issues and outliers in society, but the more that safety net service providers can strengthen the safety net, the wider I think that it can be thrown. In summary, healthy marriage and relationship education is part of a holistic preventive approach to strengthening families. It serves as part of your prevention toolkit for family well-being and self-sufficiency, meaning that there are research-based risk reduction benefits for children, families, and communities, and Ted's going to elaborate on those benefits in just a minute. Healthy marriage and relationship education is generally not appropriate as an intervention for intimate partner violence, nor is it a solution when a child is in immediate danger, for example, due to child maltreatment. I will note there is some very preliminary research that shows potential promise for providing healthy marriage and relationship education to couples who are experiencing what's been labeled as situational couple violence. This is a term that was coined by Michael Johnson to refer to couples who are mutually aggressive towards one another, where there is no dominating or exercising of coercion or control by one partner over the other, and it's a very important distinction. There have been a couple of studies that looked at the use of healthy marriage and relationship education with this non-power and control dynamic population, and those couple of studies did show an increase in knowledge and marital satisfaction among the couples, but that data, I would caution, is very new, and we still have much to learn about that particular area. All agencies working to strengthen families should have protocols for what to do when a family member is in immediate danger, and I'm sure that's not news to anyone on this call. Final note, we do have resources on our website and in our virtual library that point you to national organizations, military family resources, and to hotlines to add to your safety intervention toolkit along with that prevention toolkit. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ted.
Thank you, Deborah. And what I'll talk about for a few minutes here is how does healthy marriage and relationship education affect children, families, and communities. And before getting started, I wanted to throw another poll question up there and ask you what you think. How much do you think family fragmentation costs U.S. taxpayers? If you take a moment here to cast your vote. All right, we've got some mixed views on this, and we have about roughly almost a third who feel 1 to 50 billion, and about half between 50 to 100, and roughly about a quarter who feel that it's more than 110 billion. And if we go to the next slide, you will see that in fact the total cost to U.S. taxpayers each year for family fragmentation runs around $112 billion. And the cost, these are real and quantifiable costs. The United States is estimated to spend that $112 billion per year. The figure includes direct, indirect costs associated with taxpayer expenditures for anti-poverty, safety net provider services, courts, and through lower levels of taxes. Work loss is associated with marital problems, and that converts into a cost of approximately $6.8 billion per year. And these estimates and others suggest that although relationships are private decisions, their outcomes have public consequences. Even small increases in stable marriage rates could result in large returns to taxpayers. So what does the research show in terms of the benefits of strong families, healthy marriages for children, parents, and communities? Well, we know that research shows that on average, stable, committed relationships impact children emotionally and behaviorally. Those in stable, committed relationships tend to have fewer emotional problems and behavioral problems. They do better in school. On average, they are less likely to use drugs, engage in delinquent behaviors, or participate in risky sexual activities. As well, they are also less likely to have sleep or health problems. And it's really important, particularly given today's obesity and health epidemics. Research is showing really strong links between quality of sleep and obesity risk. And also, healthy marriages, healthy, stable, committed relationships, on average, help promote healthier parents. They live longer on average. They experience lower levels of stress and lower incidences of mental health issues. Also, stable, committed relationships on average promote adults who are more likely to own a home, be financially stable, to be engaged in their community and volunteer. And so just simply pulling together those resources, working together as a team, really promotes that stability of the family, which for those in child welfare services and related services really try to promote stability and permanency for children. Promoting healthy couple relationships can really help be one way to reach that goal. Healthy communities are also benefited, communities are also benefited by healthy couple and marital relationships. On average, we see lower rates of absenteeism from work, less job turnover, fewer accidents, higher levels of productivity, as well as, there's some preliminary data showing links between lower divorce rates and teen pregnancy rates. So overall, healthy couple and healthy marriages on average really promote healthier, stronger communities as a whole. Even small increases in stable marriage rates could result in large returns to taxpayers. Next, we'll talk a little bit about the research on, the benefits of healthy marriage and relationship education. As Deborah pointed out, what healthy marriage and relationship education involves, there has been substantial research now conducted over the last several years showing both short-term and currently now, some long-term benefits that these skills that couples acquire during these programs, during these services, not only are result in some immediate positive outcomes for couples in terms of the quality of the relationship, but that we see that they continue to use these skills, and we see some lasting effects of these outcomes. And there have been some studies done recently that have analyzed these results across multiple studies to show the consistency in these positive impacts that healthy marriage relationship educations have shown to impact relationship quality and communication skills. Importantly, these results are valid with both low and middle income families. So it's not just benefiting one type of couple or family, but it really is having an impact across the board for the various families that we all work with. So these results show that healthy marriage relationship education is important. It's a critical prevention-focused, holistic approach to strengthening families. And you can learn more about these results that I've shared. They're summarized wonderfully in one of the fact sheets that we have available by Dr. Brian Higginbotham, Why Marriage and Relationship Education Matters to Safety Net Service Providers. This is one of the fact sheets you can download at the end of this webinar and read through in more detail. Now with that, I'd like to transition to a video on why healthy marriage and relationship education is important.
think it's important to the stakeholders because they are the ones who we are trying to reach to incorporate marriage and relationship education into the work that they're already doing.
Childbearing, relationships, marriage, and divorce are personal and private decisions. But when families are unsafe or unstable, the consequences of their private decisions ripple through communities and into the workforce.
It's about daily living skills. It's about everything from communication to how to manage a budget within the home to conflict resolution, romance. So really looking at bringing all those pieces together so that it's strengthening the family and ultimately it's
It does seem we're having some technical difficulties with our video. Andrea, would you like us to proceed forward?
Yeah, we apologize, everyone, for the difficulty. The video is a video that talks about the perspective from the stakeholders of why healthy marriage and relationship education are important, and it has some wonderful information and interviews in it, and we're going to have this available on our website, so we really encourage everyone to visit the website when you have a chance. Again, that's healthymarriageandfamilies.org, and we really apologize for the technical difficulties. And then, James, would you like to go ahead?
Sure, I'd be happy to do that. We're going to start with a poll question as well, and that, will somebody drop that poll question in there? All right, there it is. So the poll question is, healthy marriage and relationship education can only be facilitated by a licensed therapist. This is an easy one. Is it true or false? Great. It looks like there's quite a bit of consensus on this one. Looks like the majority of the respondents said that's false. In other words, you don't have to be a licensed therapist in order to provide relationship and marriage education to others. So there's an important question here, and that question is, why, as a safety net service provider, should I even attempt to promote healthy relationship skills when I'm working with parents? Well, my understanding is that one of the primary responsibilities of a safety net service provider is to protect and strengthen the lives of children and families. And so one important way that can be done is by helping them have more stable relationships. And research has shown that unhealthy and abusive relationships between parents is detrimental to children's development and safety. So helping those couples learn healthy relationship skills really is an effective strategy for improving outcomes for parents and children alike. There's a saying that I think rings true here, that's one of the best things that parents can do for their children is to be willing to love one another, because when the quality of a parent relationship is strong, they're going to be a lot more likely to be more invested in their children and to be more have more quality parenting. So let's move forward and look at this issue. The slides talks about safety net service providers definitely are qualified to teach healthy relationship skills. And you may be wondering, well, how is that the case? Well, I'm guessing that a lot of you who are safety net service providers probably realize that the families with whom you're working are struggling in their relationships. And sometimes some of those clients with whom you're working may even ask you for relationship advice. And when that happens, you may think, well, hold on, I'm not a relationship expert. How am I going to be of help? Or you may be thinking, well, how can I help struggling couples when I'm single, divorced, or when my relationship has its own challenges? And thankfully, safety net service providers don't have to be relationship experts. They don't have to have an ideal relationship themselves, and they don't have to be even in a relationship in order to help couples have stronger and more stable relationships. Because the fact is that none of us is in a perfect relationship. To be helpful, you just simply need to be willing to learn, practice, and share a few proven strategies. The important thing is to share proven principles of healthy couple relationships rather than just sharing your opinion, because opinions can get us into trouble, and the research-based strategies are those things that have been shown to be effective. Now, some of those ideas have been talked about in today's webinar, but certainly we would encourage you to go to the Healthy Marriage and Families website to check out a lot more ideas and learn more ideas about what you might share with the clientele with whom you work. It's interesting that research has shown that lay leaders can teach healthy marriage education skills just as well as most mental health professionals. And quite simply, that's because marriage and relationship education, it's not therapy. It doesn't involve diagnosis and treatment. One way of thinking of this is just like it doesn't take a professional chef to teach someone how to prepare a meal, it doesn't take a trained therapist or relationship expert to help someone learn the skills necessary to have a better relationship. And oftentimes, as I work with people just in live settings and the trainings that I do, I'll tell them, I might be perceived as an expert in parenting or marriage and couple relationships or personal well-being, and I'll tell them I'm not perfect in any of these areas, but I try and practice what I preach, so to speak. I try and do the best that I can, and I think that really helps set people's minds at ease. And so, as safety net service providers, as you're working with your clientele, I think that'd be probably a wise thing to tell them. Say, hey, you know what, I'm not perfect in all of these things. I'm just trying to do my best, and by sharing these ideas with you, I'm hoping that you can maybe improve your relationships as well. All right, so the next slide says how to share or teach healthy relationship skills. Well, let's talk about that for a minute. Sometimes, as professionals or as safety net service providers, we might be tempted to see the families with whom we work as the source of problems, and maybe see ourselves as the source of solutions. I'm trained as a marriage and family therapist, and there certainly have been times where, families have come in to visit with me, and I thought, you guys are a mess, and I know exactly what to tell you to fix everything. Well, that is a really unhelpful attitude to have, and here are a couple of reasons why. Because the families with whom we work know far more about their own lives, challenges, and resources than we do, and any solutions that we try and impose on them without their conviction and commitment to that really are not going to be that effective. And quite honestly, some of the most important answers in any teaching opportunity will come from the families themselves. So the most important answers are those that represent the family's best thinking and their commitment to growth. So one thing that we can do is to help build trust with families and with the couples with whom we work. So in any discussion with couples, there are going to be some people who don't really want to volunteer answers. They sort of sit back and seem reluctant to answer questions. And that may be because they're wondering if they're going to be embarrassed or corrected or condemned, right? And they're unable to express themselves clearly. If they're unable to express themselves clearly, they may be worrying about being humiliated. So one of the best things safety net service providers can do to earn trust with couples has to do with the way that they treat them. It's natural for individuals to be reluctant to commit until they feel safe. And so what a professional will do is set couples up for success by asking questions that allow for a lot of different answers. So you'll want to ask open-ended questions that encourage couples to come up with their own solutions. So you might ask something like, what do you think will work? Or what have you seen other couples do in this situation? Or do you have an idea of how to apply this principle? And then after asking those questions, you allow time for the couples to respond. See, if you jump in immediately and answer your own question, then pretty quickly the couples learn, hey, they really don't care what my opinion is. They just want to tell me whatever it is they want to tell me. So silence is okay because it allows individuals time to think and formulate their own responses. The second bullet point on this slide says working together to solve problems. Safety net service providers have the opportunity to help families solve problems. And in order to best help them, what you have to do is utilize proven research-based knowledge about healthy couple relationships like that found on the National Resource Center website. Safety net service providers should also seek to draw the best answers and a desire for growth out of the families they serve. When safety net service providers think of their responsibilities in these ways, there are several things they can do to bring the best out of the families they serve. For example, demonstrating respect for the efforts, skills, experiences, and challenges that families bring. This can be done by listening carefully to their comments and offering encouragement. You might say something like, you face so many difficulties, or I admire your courage to keep trying, or you've tried a lot of things to make your life better, or you have a lot of good ideas. See, when you say things like that to the families, it lets them know that you value their opinion and that you see in them a lot of potential. Another important thing to do is to be willing to honor the families by inviting them to be creative problem solvers. So safety net service providers don't only share information designed to strengthen couple relationships, they also invite the families to think of good ways to apply those principles to their own lives. So you might ask questions like, what do you think would work with your family? Or how would you apply that principle to make your relationship better? Or what have you learned from your experience? Or can you think of other ideas that might be helpful? See, the most effective safety net service providers help families find ideas and solutions to problems within themselves rather than just saying, here's what you got to do, and if you do it, things are going to be great. Another thing is that we have to honor a family member's efforts in situations where there may be some disagreement. There may be times when a family member makes a statement that we disagree with. So when this happens, a professional will respect the family member's experience and perspective by validating what they heard while inviting them to consider some other possibilities. For example, you may be working with a family and one of the parents says something like, what kids these days need is a good whipping. And as a safety net service provider, you may not agree with that, right? And so what you might say is something like, it sounds like you really want your children to respect boundaries. What do you do that works best to help those children value boundaries even when you're not around? Or you might say something like, letting children know that you're serious about limits is important. In my experience, children are more likely to follow the rules when they understand them and they believe that they're important. How can we help children with this? So you don't say, hey, yeah, what they need is a whipping. You don't say, hey, that's totally wrong. You help them think about it in a slightly different way. Let's take a look at the next slide. The next slide says, my relationship isn't perfect. How can I help couples? Well, if you're interested in some of these ideas that I've talked about, we have a tip sheet available for you. You can access that on the website. It's the healthymarriageandfamilies.org website, and you click on the library section, and that's where you'll be able to find this tip sheet called My Relationship Isn't Perfect, How Can I Help Couples? So hopefully some of those ideas will be of interest to you, and I think I will turn the time over now to Robin, who has some information for you.
Thanks, James. That tip sheet is also available as a download here as well, so I hope folks will take advantage of that. So what we've heard Deborah talk about what are healthy marriages, what is healthy marriage education. We've heard Ted talk about how it makes a difference for safety net service providers, and we've heard James talk about our role as stakeholders out in the communities and working with these families and how we can help to integrate these healthy marriage and education skills into service delivery systems. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about the integration and what that looks like and what it can look like. So when the Resource Center talks about integration, we basically think of it at three different levels. So basic engagement is level one, and that could be as simple as putting handouts in a waiting room or You could have tip sheets, for example, if you're a TANF agency and you meet with clients one-on-one, you could have a file with various tip sheets that you could simply hand a tip sheet on trust or communication to one of the clients that you're serving. So thinking about that as level 1, very basic engagement. Level 2 is partnerships, and what we talk about when we talk about partnerships are developing partners, whether it be service providers in the community, such as your cooperative extension system or healthy marriage education programs that exist in your community, developing those partnerships where you can refer families so that they can access healthy relationship education skills that are already being provided, whether it's parenting, financial literacy, whatever those skills might be. And then we think about level 3 is full integration. And full integration might look like an environment where you are able to offer workshops to families, or it might be one-on-one. For example, if you're a child welfare worker and you do in-home visitation, you might could go in and actually have conversations with the family about relationship education. So for example, a child welfare worker going into the home, if they see that the outlets are not covered and there's a toddler in the home, that might spark a conversation about child safety. In the same way, if that same worker were to go into a home and identify that there might be a new love interest, that this single mom that they're meeting with might have a new boyfriend in the picture, initiating a conversation about that relationship and what the potential impact of that relationship might be on the children in the family would be a simple way to start conversation around healthy relationship education skills. So in thinking about that, taking it just a little more specifically, looking at Head Start, for example, if you were working in a Head Start environment, level 1 might be creating a family resource space that offers handouts for parents on the importance of healthy relationships. Level 2 might be developing community partners to provide financial literacy, healthy marriage education, parenting, or other workshops that support healthy relationships. And level 3 might be actually training the parent liaison at the Head Start program to facilitate healthy marriage education curriculum as part of their family engagement efforts. So I hope that kind of gives you a more concrete picture of what we're thinking about when we talk about these different levels of integration. So when we talk about integrating into all of these different safety net service delivery systems, what we think of is the fact that all of these different agencies have different service delivery systems. Their service delivery might be direct service 101, there might be group environments, there might only be website access. There are some states who have families sign up for TANF online. So it might be very varying from safety net service provider to service provider. So if we think about how we can integrate on these different levels across all of these different agencies, then we actually have an opportunity to create consistent messaging about the positive need for healthy marriage education skills. As we mentioned early in our conversations today, we talked about the fact that typically families would learn these skills within their family of origin. And we talked about the fact that if you don't learn it there really isn't a place in our society where you learn it. Unfortunately, what we do have oftentimes is access to these skills in a punitive way. So, for example, if you get involved with child welfare, you might be subjected to parenting classes. Or if you get in trouble financially, you're encouraged to go to financial counseling. What the Resource Center encourages is that we make these skills available to families in a non-punitive way through services that they are already accessing. In that way, they're much more likely to take advantage of these services, to access this information, to strengthen their own families, and to not feel as if it's something that they have to do because they've messed up. So with that, I'd like to share with you, we're going to try another video, and I appreciate your patience with our new technology and the fact that we have just created these fabulous videos and we really want to share them with you. So we're going to take a few minutes and watch this video about the Resource Center.
Strong families are the foundation of strong communities. Yet many families you serve struggle to achieve self-sufficiency, and as service providers, you struggle to support them within traditional safety net service delivery systems. The National Resource Center for Healthy Marriage and Families works with federal, state, tribal, and local government agencies to promote the value of healthy marriage and relationship education skills. We encourage their integration into safety net service delivery systems as a holistic approach to strengthening the families you serve. We offer a virtual resource center available 24 hours a day that is user-friendly and easy to navigate. The website also includes success stories and a calendar of upcoming events. Our searchable library has over 300 resources, including research on promising practices that supports the need for and benefits of healthy marriage education skills. The library also includes stakeholder-specific products developed by experts in the field like tip sheets, fact sheets, and research to practice briefs. Visit our virtual training center to learn more about free training and technical assistance, including webinars and in-person and online training opportunities. If you can't find what you are looking for, we have a call center that is staffed Monday through Friday so you can speak to a live person. Healthy marriage and relationship education include interpersonal skills like communication and conflict resolution, as well as critical skills like parenting and financial literacy. These skills serve as the cornerstone for strong families. For more information on healthy marriage education skills, visit www.healthymarriageandfamilies.org, info@healthymarriageandfamilies.org, 1-866-916-4672.
Thank you. I hope you enjoyed that video. And in the video, we talked about the services that are providing, including training and technical assistance. One of the files that you have available for download relates to the levels of integration that I talked about a few minutes ago. That handout, if you download it, also lines up what type of training and technical assistance can be provided to you based on the different levels of integration if you're interested in pursuing that within your agency. So the other thing that I wanted to point out is the expertise behind the Resource Center. We have expertise around research, program design, implementation, organizational development, policy analysis, public-private partnerships, strategic planning, and a host of other skills. Additionally, there's expertise around healthy marriage, family strengthening, parenting, asset building, family safety, child welfare, social justice, workforce development, and anti-poverty, as well as others. In addition to the staff that we have on the Resource Center, we also have access to a cadre of experts around the country that are attached to various universities and the Cooperative Extension System who are available to assist us in providing you with resources as well as training and technical assistance. You've heard us talk about all the resources available in our library, and you've heard several of our presenters today talk about the fact that those resources are research-based, which we think is significant in your efforts to try to educate your colleagues and your leadership about the importance of integrating healthy marriage education skills into your service delivery systems. And so with that, I am going to take us into a couple of poll questions. And so the first poll question is, are you likely to talk with others at your organization about integration of relationship education into your current services or role at work? Your options are yes, possibly, not sure, and no, or no vote. Okay. And the next poll question is, Are you likely to use the National Resource Center for resources or training technical assistance in the future? Yes, possibly not sure, no, or no votes. Okay. We really appreciate your feedback on these poll questions. They will help us to make sure that we do a better job on future webinars and make sure that we're meeting the needs of all of our stakeholders. Before I turn you over to Andrea, who's going to coordinate our moderated question and answer session, I'd just like to say thank you once again for joining us today. Apologize again for our technical difficulties with the videos, but as mentioned, all of our videos are available in the media gallery on our website, and they are perfect 2.5 to 3 minute video clips that are great for sharing with your colleagues and staff to help them better understand the mission of the Resource Center as well. So with that, I'll turn it over to Andrea.
Thanks, Robin. As Robin said, we'll now begin the Q&A portion of our webinar today. Just to remind you to ask a question, please find the question and answer pod designated by the letters Q and A in the bottom right portion of your screen. Type your question into the open field at the bottom and then click either the Send Question button or press Enter. We've been receiving some great questions throughout the presentations today, but we'll continue taking them in, and we will try to cover as many as we can in the next few minutes. So our first question is going to go to Ted, and the question is about the cost of family fragmentation that you referenced, and it's asking if you can define how those costs were, how family fragmentation was defined, and it's also asking how do you know that those costs aren't attributable to other factors?
Sure, I'll take that. And if you wouldn't mind, if you could put that slide up on the cost of family fragmentation, it might help to kind of see some of those numbers if that's possible. And but briefly, the report is based on calculations. First, it takes into account a couple of things. One, the proportion of children living with two married parent households, has dropped basically from 85% to 68%, according to census data. And, roughly more than a third of children are now born outside of wedlock. And so from a combination of both divorce and out-of-wedlock trends in the U.S., there are a lot of services directed, anti-poverty type of services directed to support those families. The higher cost to taxpayers results from those efforts, those programs, those services, and you can see some of those on the slide that we have there. And you can get more of this information also from the original report, the Taxpayer Cost of Divorce and Unwanted Childbearing, which is really one of the first ever national reports. And it also provides a wonderful breakdown by state on how these costs are broken down by state, and you can access this report from our Resource Center library. Again, if you were simply to search the Taxpayer Cost of Divorce and Unwanted Childbearing, that report will come up for you, and you can find that on our library website. And so these costs are based on taxpayer revenue loss and the direct costs to taxpayers as a result of expenditures that go towards local, state, federal taxpayer finance programs. So I hope that answered your question. If there's a follow-up question to that, happy to address it. But again, I think you'll find the report quite detailed in how it calculates those costs.
Great, thank you, Ted. Our next question is going to be for Robin. Robin, they're asking, is there a curriculum that the Resource Center recommends?
Thanks, Andrea. Actually, we do not recommend a specific curriculum. We do have a guide that looks at curriculum that is free and low cost, the cap on that low cost figure being curriculum that is available for $300 or less. And a lot of the curriculum is actually free. the guide breaks down it's all research-based curriculum, but the guide breaks it down by what are some of the contents within the different curriculum. And the Resource Center is actually in the process of launching some curriculum that will be available online and free for stakeholders, available through our Training and Technical Assistance Program.
Great. Thank you, Robin. James, this next question is for you. The question is, do you have any tips for serving couples when one is unwilling to actively participate in marriage relationship education?
Do I have ideas for helping couples when one of them doesn't want to participate?
Yes.
Yeah. You know, there are some therapists and marriage educators out there that talk about this idea that, you know, it really takes one to tango. And what they mean by that is that even if one partner in a relationship doesn't initially seem willing to participate in any way, shape, or form in either relationship education or counseling, if one person is willing to participate, that can change the relationship dynamics. It's sort of that idea of systems theory, where a change in one part of the system can affect every other part of the system. So yeah, it can do a lot of good to have the one partner who is willing to participate learn some new ideas, to change some ways of thinking, to change their way of doing things, and it can change the whole system. So you don't have to have both couples or both partners in a couple participate in order for it to be effective.
Great. Thank you, James. That was very useful.
Andrew?
Robin, the next...
And actually, Andrew, if you don't mind, I'd love to add something also to that.
Oh, absolutely, Ted. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'd love to also encourage our audience to not just think about relationship marriage education as working with current couples, but think about it also in terms of working with future couples. In other words, working with clientele, say single parents, who aren't in established relationships, but likely will be in and hopefully not too often out of unhealthy relationships. And hopefully you can use relationship and marriage education to teach them what to look for in a healthy relationship, how to establish and build a healthy relationship, deciding, not sliding, as Scott Stanley and Howard Markman have coined it, to make really wise choices in the relationship decisions they make that put them at low risk, but more importantly, put their children at low risk for safety issues, and promote stable, healthy future marriages and relationships.
One other thing I might add, adding on to what Ted just said, is that John Van Epps, for example, has written extensively. He has a book called How to Avoid Marrying a Jerk. And there's some great ideas in that book for people who are not yet in a relationship but are dating or think that at some point they will be in a serious relationship. And one of the key ideas that he shares in that book is that we ought not to let our commitments get ahead of our knowledge. And so what he means by that is we ought to spend a fair amount of time getting to know prospective partners before we become physically or intimately committed to them in some way. So that's another great idea as well.
Great. Thank you, everyone, for those great responses. Robin, this next one, I think maybe you could address this next one. The question is, can Title I funds be used to support safety net service providers for marriage support services? Funds are generally used for parenting, parental engagement, and involvement.
Yes, Title I, and particularly if you're thinking about Title I dollars for elementary schools or schools within low-income, challenged communities, those Title I funds can be used through the parent liaison that is usually assigned to the school. The parent liaison can provide these types of training programs under those funds, much like what they do at Head Start, very similar.
Great, thank you. Our next question, Robin, I guess you can go ahead and take this one as well, is are there any legal issues to be concerned about regarding marriage support services, regarding service providers providing marriage support services?
Well, I think that if we're thinking about what the Resource Center is promoting, then what we're really talking about is promoting the integration of healthy marriage and relationship education skills. So what we're focusing on are the skills, not marriage per se. These happen to be the skills that are research-based skills that support healthy marriages, and the funds that support the Resource Center come from Healthy Marriage, the National Healthy Marriage Initiative legislation. But it really isn't about promoting marriage. So I think as long as we're all clear that we're focusing on those skills and these skills that we have discussed through our presentation, communication, conflict resolution, parenting, and financial literacy, no, I don't think there are any challenges that we need to be concerned about there. It's when you start getting into policy and moral issues that one can run into trouble.
And just from a therapist point of view, if you're not a therapist, you just want to be real candid and upfront and say, hey, you know what, I'm not a licensed clinician. I'm happy to share with you these ideas on what the research says happy couples do, or what works in couple relationships. I'm not here to diagnose you, and I'm not here to provide treatment in any way. I'm not qualified for that, and that's not my role. And then I think you're on pretty safe ground.
Excellent point. Thanks, James.
Great, thanks. So James or Ted, maybe you two would want to answer this question, but the next question is there evidence to support the idea that marriage education is a good strategy for reducing poverty?
Sure, I'm happy to tackle that, and James, if you want to add in thoughts on that as well. But there is an increasing body of research emerging as a result of the last several years of federal funding that has gone towards these sort of initiatives that has really targeted high risk, low resource clientele to promote these skills to form healthy relationships, and ideally, hopefully, healthy future marriages if that's something they should choose. Now, is it actually reducing poverty? I think the jury's still out on that. I think there's still, although the research is able to show that teaching these skills translates into using these skills, there still needs to be more research to show if then that results in greater family stability and reduced poverty, reduced costs associated with poverty. However, we do know from longitudinal studies that the practice of these skills in general in a relationship, using effective communication strategies, managing differences and conflict. Keep in mind a lot of conflict in a relationship may not be resolvable, and so what we try to promote and educate couples on is how to manage differences in healthy ways, and just those sort of skills, and understanding how to discuss finances, how to manage stress together, how to parent your children as a team. Those skills can be all learned, and research shows strong links between those practicing those skills and long-term relationship and marital stability.
I agree with what Ted said. One, I guess, a website or an article on a website that I might point you to that would have a lot more information on this subject is the Heritage Foundation. Their website, I think, is heritage.org. And earlier this year, I think it was September 6th, 2012, they had an article that was called Marriage, the Greatest Weapon Against Childhood Poverty. So they have a fair amount of research that they've been done or that they've looked at, I guess, that talks about how strengthening marriage relationships really does have a positive impact on childhood poverty.
Okay, great, thanks. And then our next question is probably Robin or Deborah, either of you, if you want to answer this one. It is, we have a very diverse population and a wide range of family-parental relationships. How broadly do you define family and marriage?
Well, this is Robin. I'll start, and then others can feel free to chime in. As far as the Resource Center is concerned, we don't actually get into defining family. Again, our focus is on integrating healthy relationship education skills, and as we've heard some of the other panel discuss, these skills are just as valuable to individuals as they are to couples. Change typically has to come from the inside out. So thinking along those lines, these relationship skills, communication, conflict resolution, they are just as valuable to grandparents who are raising grandchildren, other relatives, single parents, almost any kind of relationship. As a matter of fact, one of the key things about these types of skills that are so important is that they actually transfer into the workplace. So communication and conflict resolution skills are just as important among coworkers as they are within the family itself. So no, we don't really get into all of that. We just try to make sure that these skills are made available through safety net service providers for any individuals who would like to take advantage of them.
And this is Deborah, and I'll just add that that's really a part of what the Resource Center's purpose is to make these as universally available as possible, and that's why the Resource Center provides training and technical assistance across safety net services, because there are so many lives, regardless of family structure or other social structure, there are so many different types of lives that are touched by safety net service providers. So it is about those core and critical skills that we've mentioned being universally provided. That's the ideal to any family, regardless of how that family defines itself.
Great, thank you. And then for our final question, maybe James, you would like to take this one. The question is it ever too late for marriage counseling?
Well, that's a tough one. I mean, a lot of that depends upon the willingness of people to work, to consider new ideas. I mean, as a therapist, I lean towards saying no. It's never too late. And like I was saying before, it only takes one person to be willing to see things and do things differently. Ideally, it's great if both are willing to participate. So there's not a definitive answer on that. There's always some good that can be done, whether that's improving and saving the current relationship, or creating more knowledge and ideas and perspective for a future relationship if the current one by chance doesn't work out. But I tell the couples with whom I work that I'm very pro-marriage, and I will be the last one to give up on their marriage. I never tell people, yeah, I think you ought to get a divorce, unless there are cases of abuse and things of that nature. That's a different ballgame. But just in general, if couples are having a hard time getting along, I'll tell them, hey, I'm willing to work with you as long as you want to, and we'll do our best to straighten things out, but I'm not going to give up on your marriage.
And this is Deborah, and we'll just add that the reason that we really had James answer that question is because of his licensed background. If you were a service provider and faced with that question, that is at the time at which you would want to most likely suggest that person talk with a therapist or another expert, and particularly if you are having concerns about the safety or stability of the relationship, and feel that it's beyond, if that person's asking for personal advice like that, that's probably going to be beyond, or most likely going to be beyond, the scope of what you would be providing in terms of healthy marriage and relationship education. So always feel free to rely on your resources and make sure that you do have those connections in your community, so that you can, which we can help you connect to, so that you can refer people out when they need more intense support.
It's a great idea. There's nothing wrong with saying, hey, I don't know the answer to that when somebody asks you a question that you honestly don't know the answer to. What you can do is say, here's what I do know, here's what the research has shown to be effective. And if they get asking questions that seem very personal, as was mentioned, it's perfectly fine to say, hey, you know what, let's find someone else that you can talk with that can answer some of those questions.
Wonderful. Thank you, everyone, for the wonderful answers in the presentations today. We've had some questions about if the slides from this presentation today will be available, and they will. Please check back to our website. In 10 business days, we are going to have a recording and the slides and a transcript and a Q&A document available, so any questions we weren't able to answer today will be included in that document. And again, our website is healthymarriageandfamilies.org. And very quickly, I'd like to ask everyone to participate in 2 final poll questions. Just as a reminder again, all of your responses are anonymous, and this really helps us plan for future webinars. Our first question is, I now know more about the resources available from the National Resource Center and how these can assist in the integration of relationship education into my agency's service delivery. And the options there are strongly agree, agree, neither agree or disagree, disagree, and strongly disagree. All right, and our next question is, we'd like to know, how did you hear about this webinar today? Was it from our website, from an email or newsletter we sent out, from another organization's listserv, from a friend or colleague, or from another source? All right, wonderful. Thank you, everyone, for your participation and for your responses today. We're going to leave you with our contact information up here, with our website, our email address, and our toll-free phone number, so please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you again for joining us. Have a wonderful afternoon.
And that will conclude our call for today. We thank you for your participation.